All right, let's get started. Welcome to the April 21st slide presentation for our wonderful DACs. Really do appreciate everything that you are doing. The fact that you are, I'm sure, troubleshooting on your end, but do really appreciate what you folks are doing. I am going to hopefully record. Are we recording? Hey, yay, somebody recorded. Okay. I will share my screen though. Interesting. So sorry. There we are. Okay. So for April 21st, we are on. This is the agenda. I'm going to share about a few of these, but as I said, started to with a thank you. Thank you very much for everything that you do. Also for opening your buildings to us as we've come out and done a few monitoring visits. I think we're hitting about 50 school districts this year. And of course, thank you for those of you who are doing the monitoring visits for us, basically taking time out of your day to visit the classrooms that are testing and making sure that testing security is in place for us. Thank you very much. We have 202,446 tests submitted as of this morning. That's wonderful as far as I'm concerned. You guys, this is a great number. I understand that this is just tests instead of individuals. So, but still, it is so great to see that number up there. And just a small reminder, again, that the achievement levels that you are seeing with the proficiency side are preliminary until we have completed the standard setting this summer. So just wanted to make sure that I say that one more time, just so folks are clear on that. And then, oh, here's my thank you to, again, all the districts and schools that have opened up their classrooms. Really appreciate the opportunity to see the test administrations in action, seeing some of the issues that are popping up, recognize that this adds just one more stressor to this test administration for you folks. But again, we thank you for helping us meet our requirements for monitoring the process. And as I found out this year, the Attorney General pays attention because we had a compliance, not a visit necessarily, but they were checking records. So thank you very much. All right, NTC update. Maggie, this is yours. Maggie.
I'm so sorry. Couldn't find the mute button.
Okay, sorry.
So NTC codes. The one that is asked about the most is remove versus not currently enrolled. So I'm going to try my best to keep it simple. Any student with a withdraw date prior to 4/3/23, please use the remove NTC code. Because basically the student left prior to the test window, so technically he should be removed, or the student should be removed from the file. Any student who has activity within the test window would be a not currently enrolled. And I think the rest of them are pretty self-explanatory. So if anybody has any questions about any of the NTC codes, please let me know if you have any.
Okay, this is Danny Beerbaum. I just want to clarify. So we had 2 students that never started the year, but they still show up on our roster. They were
Okay.
never, they moved over the summer. Those should be categorized as remove, not attending. Okay.
Correct. And I can address that as well. The Acacia test system and automatically rosters any students that are in the system for 22-23 in order to view previous results of, so like if you happen, so a lot of districts, you know, uploaded a roster into CAP in August, not knowing, you know, may even been before school started. So you may have rostered these students, Danny, but you know, they're not here, we enrolled them, great. But the system automatically rostered them for spring in case there was fall results that you wanted to view. I've asked NWEA to come up with a better solution that we shouldn't be automatically rostering students that aren't here. You know, so hopefully they're working on that, but until then, we have to add the remove not tested code.
Okay, thank you.
And if you, now, which this brings up another problem that I'm coming across is students who transfer. If you're transferring a student to a new district, please do not add a not tested code to their records, because that not tested code gets forwarded to the district who is actually going to test them. And then their tests don't get scored because there's an NTC code attached to the record. So if you're moving this student to the next district, please do not add NTC codes.
So okay, so that's a different situation. We had 2 kids move in like February, March. They should not get a not tested code from me. I need to send them to the district because they were in state moves.
Yeah. So we want to make sure there's no NTC codes. Now, if it's already done, you know, I've been cleaning them up. So you know, NWE sends me an anomaly list. So any submitted tests with an NTC code, I've been cleaning them up already. So I don't worry about going backwards, Danny. That's
okay. Well, I think I coded them wrong anyways, because I think I put the other 2 in as like not enrolled. I didn't put them as removed. So I probably need to go in and change those. Can I change them even though I've done that? Okay.
Yes, please do. Thank you. That's less cleanup during the summer. Thank you.
Okay. Yeah, thank you.
Okay, Bethany, I've got 2 questions before you, and so I'll ask these 2 questions and then I'll have you come on, okay? So one question, Maggie, was removed a lot of students during the winter session and then had to do it again, the same students for spring. Do you know why those students weren't removed?
That's the same reason.
Okay.
The system automatically rosters them. If the student was rostered in August of 2022, you know, when at the time that the district didn't know if the student was there or not, it's going to automatically roster them for each administration.
Okay. All right. Thank you. And what was the date for students to be coded as removed? What was that date again? 4/3.
April 3, the first day of the test window.
Okay. Thank you. Okay, Bethany.
And actually, it's different for ACT.
Yeah.
ACT would have been March 21st.
Okay, I'm sorry. So March 21st for ACT, April 3rd for NSCAS.
And the alternate.
And the alternate. Okay, thank you. All right, Bethany?
I'm wondering why the system, like what was the rationale for setting it up so that if there's a not tested code entered, it overrides the score? Is that something that could be changed? I mean, not for this year, but just looking down the road.
I think it's a quality thing. That
quality control thing.
Quality control. So if there's an NTC code, that code has to be removed before the test will be scored.
Okay, that doesn't make any sense to me because we know the code is not valid if the test has been taken. I mean, there might be an INV code that you would want to
Well-
override, but not all of them.
Just today, I have a student that's coded with the alternate assessment, and he took the science test. He took the wrong test. He's an alternate assessment student.
Okay.
So
So maybe
That's-
there's some that could override, or maybe they could fix it if a student is transferred, those automatically come off because that's a problem because I mean, there's not an easy way to see that when you move the kid because it's on a totally different screen. So if the school has, and I'm going to clean them up, but I'm just trying to figure out how we could prevent that from accidentally happening. Because schools put them in and then 2 weeks later, we realize they've transferred somewhere within Nebraska, or they come back and they've out of state and they return and no one notices that the code is still there. The student takes the test and it's kind of a pain. So I just like us to think, be creative around it a little bit and see if we can come up with something that's just more smooth.
Okay, well, we have it in the video and we'll take down the request. Okay.
But that just happened to us recently. We had a student take the test and the scores were not showing up and we couldn't figure out why. And then I went in and realized that the student had just transferred from another school and had an NCE in the thing. And we just took the NCE out and then the scores showed up.
Mm-hmm.
So it's not like the test is not actually scored at all.
Yeah.
It's just.
yeah, we
not
just
fun
need to
taking
remove
time
the
to figure
code.
it out. Yeah,
Okay.
it's not fun taking the time to figure it out.
But the results won't be used for accountability. That kid is going to count as not assessed and not proficient if the code gets left on there, correct?
Yeah, but I get it in an anomaly list from NWEA. Every submitted test with an NTC code I look at. And if it's appropriate to remove the code, it gets removed and the test gets scored. At the end of the window, all of those will be reviewed.
Angie, you had your hand raised.
Thanks, Trudy. I got my question answered, so I'm good.
Okay, all right, very good.
Thank you.
Yep, you bet. Okay, so if a student transferred to another district in the state, regardless of time in the school year, we should not put in an NTC code? That's from Dawn. If a student transferred to another district in the state, regardless of time in the school year, we should not put in an NTC.
If the district is transferring the student in CAP and or in Acacia, do not add an NTC code. So I've like some of the examples are students who left in January and the previous district added a remove NTC code, but then the student came back, just like Bethany's example, the student came back to another district 2 months later, so I verify the enrollment and make sure that the student's where he's supposed to be, and I remove the code so that the scores can be tested.
Okay.
So Dawn, it's kind of a what if, it's a different scenario.
Okay. D is asking for what is the last date for a student moving into the district to be included in testing?
A student with an entry date of April 28th or earlier is expected to test. If they have an entry date of May 1st or later, they are not expected to test, and you can add the not currently enrolled, not tested code.
Okay. And then here's a student whose parents are not allowing to attend school due to behavior until an IEP is in place. My guess is he won't be back until the fall. What code do I use?
That would be a UTT.
Okay. Megan, I'll, regarding any more conversations about testing for next year, that is going to be a conversation that I specifically have with the new commissioner. I want to be sure that we have that conversation before I come out with an understanding of how we can go forward with that. And Iris has put in April 7th for ACT as the last day for new enrollment.
Yes. Any student for ACT students, if a student has an enrollment, a new student coming in with a entry date of April 7th or before would have been expected to test. And otherwise you would use the NCE code if it's after April 7th.
Okay. And then here's a question: if the student takes the alternate assessment, but we are unable to complete testing, does the code go into DRC or NSCAS site?
If you have any alternate assessment students in Acacia, the NSCAS growth platform, please add ALT, alternate, not tested code, because that student's record should be in Insight. And the second part of that question, if the student does not complete the test, leave it as is. It will be scored as with however many questions the student completed. No, do not add a not tested code in the record in Insight.
Okay, but sorry, that was my question. I have a follow-up to that. What if it's a medical waiver?
Have you submitted the medical waiver yet?
No, we just determined that the student will probably not be back. The student's been absent the whole testing window and will probably not be back to take the test at all.
Okay, I would wait and do not code the student until the EMW has been submitted and approved or denied, and then we can address how to code the student.
Okay.
Okay. Had in my head that uploading to NWEA, like each session for a map, was the upload for NSCAS as well. So we don't need to upload students into NWEA for NSCAS growth each session.
Yes, you do. You need to upload your map growth and your map growth roster and your NSCAS growth roster are the same and uploaded in the same manner.
Okay, that's my question. So then why does the original August have all those kids from removed? Because they're not in our SIS. So it makes sense in my head that then they wouldn't be in the NSCAS growth.
So when the record was created for 22-23 in August, the system is saying, okay, well, you may have results for fall. And in order for the district to see the fall results in spring, they have to automatically roster them in the current administration. It's to me, I sorry if there's any NWA folks on the call, but it's a system flaw.
Because like we have high mobility.
You can't see the results without the student being currently enrolled in the current administration.
Because I had to remove over 75 from each session because of our high mobility. And that, I mean, I removed them in winter, so they should be removed in the spring. But I mean, that takes over an hour to go through and code all of those when they're not even in our SIS to be uploaded.
I'm actually tracking how many students the districts had to change. Could you repeat how many you changed, Chris, so that I can add it to my
probably
list?
70 to 75.
Okay.
I still have all of them here all the tickets that I had to code just so I can go back and double check that they are coded correctly.
Yeah, no, I'm
It's a
tracking
huge
this so
stack.
that we can let NWA know how many
Okay,
records we had to code unnecessarily.
perfect. Thank you.
Okay, Darren says he thinks they were in the hundreds that they had to fix.
I have 288 students for Millard.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah, I think we had about 600 in Lincoln. Ish.
I got 570 students written down for Lincoln Public Schools.
Yep.
Of course, OPS has the largest number, but I won't
Well, and
tell
we're
anybody.
only, you know, I had about 75 in a school district of only 300, so
Yeah,
that's outrageous.
so hopefully NWA is working on it. Hopefully we won't have to do this next year.
Okay, any other questions around NTCs? Okay. And this is your slide 2. The last day to make edits within the testing systems, the not testing codes, reporting schools, etc. For CAP and Acacia, it's May 16th. Go ahead.
Yep,
Maggie?
no, go. That's the last day you can add any edits to Acacia is May 16th. That will also be, so the bridge from CAP to Acacia, the last bridge will occur between the 16th and the 17th overnight. So if you make any edits in CAP or in Acacia, they'll get changed, and the last day those changes will be in effect on the 17th. So if you are making any changes and you like to verify that your changes are good, that were made, I suggest that you do any changes on the 15th and then verify on the 16th. Because again, the system will be shut off on the 17th, so you won't be able to verify if those changes were made. And then PA next for, do I have that? Oh, it's at the bottom.
Did you mention Insight?
Oh, Insight is May 12th for the alternate assessment. Last day of testing is the last day that you can make any edits to the records in Insight.
Yeah.
And then May 4th is for PA next. Last day to make add any NTC codes or any edits is May 4th.
Okay, so then this is one part of the
This is the summer
part that
cleanup.
she has. Yeah.
I'm going to say these are tentative dates because we never know what might happen. I'm going to hope for the best and that we stick with this schedule as closely as possible. If any DACs are going on vacation during this time, please, have something in place, or that somebody's checking your emails or some type of arrangement so that if I'm sending out emails, somebody is reading them so that we can get anything fixed in a timely manner.
Okay, and then here's the last slide on this with reporting. Whoops. Are you guys still there?
Hey, Trudy, on that, with the ISRs being shipped again, for both NWEA specifically, over the past couple of years, there's been, one year they let us give them a file, another year they waited till it was rostered in MAP, and then the reports, if they were online, they were able to roster according to how MAP was, because they're coming the next school year. Do we have an idea of what the process is before they do this? Like, are they printing according to a file we can give them? Are we printing?
I've not heard about this yet, but I will certainly have an answer for you the next time we talk. And we'll get that into the DAC update that goes
Okay.
out on Tuesday. Okay. Okay, Allie, this is yours. This is a repeat of a slide that we had last time, but just want to share this out again.
Wanted to give folks information about when you are seeing the NSCAS RIT data being ingested into those familiar NWEA reports. You can run the comprehensive data file and filter out, like if you're looking just for, let me back up. This is for districts that double test and just want to see map growth data or just want to see NSCAS growth data. And so you are able to do that in your comprehensive data file. That will show you every test event, and then you can filter either way out for if you want just the map growth, the spring map growth data, or looking for the NSCAS growth data. Both will be in that comprehensive data file, and that link down at the bottom, I can put that in the chat. That takes you to a connection article that allows you to see how to run those reports. I also wanted to make note that the class report and the grade report will also separate the test events. So those classic PDF reports that we've seen in the class and the grade report will have the spring, if you double test, spring map growth report results, as well as the NSCAS growth RIT reports. And so it'll just be a longer, it'll just be more pages for you to look through. The test event that has the lowest SEM is going to be the one that is in full color, and then it'll be grayed out on the other report. So you'll be able to tell that way if it's the test event with the lowest SEM or not. So we've fielded a few questions, both from NWEA and NDE folks have fielded a few questions. So just thought it was important to reiterate what you're seeing. So didn't know if there were any questions about that. Angie,
Yeah.
I see your hand up.
Yeah, Allie, I have a question. I've been looking at both the class report and the grade report, and I'm just wondering on the state growth. I have some students on the report who are listed 2, 3, or 4 times. And I'm curious why it appears that they've tested multiple times. Does it have to do with how many test sessions by chance? Or is there another explanation? I mean, some just have 1 and others have I've seen up to 4 different sessions. So I'm just trying to reconcile that.
Yeah, I haven't seen that yet. That would be a NWEA question that you could send to the help desk.
Okay.
I can put that email into the chat. It's just NWEA Nebraska at nwea.org.
Okay, and then I think it's important to note that when you run the grade report and the class report, that the overall performance, the totals only total what they're considering the valid growth scores based on whether or not it had the lower SEM. So be careful on using the totals if you're looking at
there.
reports.
Okay.
Individual student scores. And that was different than how I understood it when we talked earlier this week. So I just thought that was worth noting if others were looking at those reports. Thanks, Allie.
Yep, any score that's grayed out does not contribute to that total.
Correct.
Okay.
I must have misunderstood that when we talked earlier. So thanks.
Okay. Yep, thank you.
Hey, Angie, just to piggyback, we had the same issue of scores reporting multiple times on some students, but not all. We couldn't quite figure out the rhyme or reason. And when I reported it to NWEA, it was news to them, but I haven't heard a workaround yet.
Okay, I'll report too, so they know it's not just you, Fran.
Thanks.
Absolutely.
Okay, anything further on the reports? Okay, ACT reports. Whoa. Iris,
Well, that was quick.
I know. There you go.
Oh, hey, everyone. Happy Friday. I'm getting a lot of questions about when ACT reports are coming, when you'll get score reports. And my answer is, I cannot tell you. I don't know when you'll get your score reports. So ACT's standard answer is 5 to 8 weeks is when they'll be available. Some might be sooner, some might be later. That is even a possibility with online testing. However, for the norm, those come back faster than than the paper. So next Tuesday would be, according to ACT, the first time you should be seeing score reports. And I know a lot of you have already been seeing them. So, and that's great. It is perfectly normal that some of your students will get scores, but not all of them. They are batched. However, randomly, they do that back in Cedar Rapids where they scored those, and accommodations tests will per normal, what I've seen over the last 12 years that I worked at ACT, accommodations tests are always take longer. And then you add that writing essay in there, and that adds to the time frame. So if you have a couple of students who don't have their scores yet and all the other students do, that is perfectly normal, and is just another opportunity to grow in patience. And I know that that's not easy for high school students. So if you want to do, this is always my suggestion is Monday, Wednesdays, and Fridays, Monday, Wednesday, Fridays, check your success at act.org account and look in the online reporting. That's normally when reports show up, Monday, Wednesdays, and Fridays. So you don't have to check them every day or multiple times a day. It'll only happen overnight that those scores will post. And for the most part, students will get them in their MyACT accounts before the school gets them. So if your kids are asking you about that, they're saying, hey, I got my score, then know that like with 24, 48 hours, you're probably going to be seeing them on your success accounts. So I just wanted to share that with you because I know that's a lot of questions that I've been getting this week. And but if you have specific questions, or if it's after 8 weeks and you're not seeing a score, let me know and we'll see if we can't hunt those down for you. That's all I had to say.
Iris, is there a report in PA Next where we can download a file and see the state use questions that have been inputted with not tested codes? I see a report that says not tested student list, and that one keeps coming up blank for me, but is there a way without checking every single student that's supposed to have a code?
Let me check on that, Melissa. I'm not aware of a report like that, but it's possible there is one. I'm just not aware of it. And that other one is probably not showing anything because they're not done scoring. So that other report that you pulled up is probably blank because they won't post that report until scoring is completed for the state. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I'm worried about that May 4th deadline to try to check.
I will check and I probably can get an answer for you today.
Perfect.
Okay. Does anyone else have ACT questions?
Iris, will you send that answer out to all of us?
Well, Angie, absolutely. We're glad to.
Thank you.
Okay, I think that's it. Next Friday happens to be Arbor Day, and that's a state holiday. Not sure that I don't anticipate having a DAC update. So unless something happens between now and Wednesday, I would expect not to hold it on Friday. So keep those questions coming to us. We really want to make sure that any concerns, that you have, you address them with us. We are trying to respond within 24 hours, hopefully as soon as possible. And so, yes, please make sure that you ask those questions. And if you have specific questions around data, I will make sure that and you send that to me, I'll make sure it gets to whomever can answer that question. At this point, any open questions that we haven't asked in the chat or in the other parts of the discussion? Just to make sure, each student is given the 26 or 27 items, depending on whether it's ELA or math, and however many field test questions there are. Those are the on grade level items. So every student, each student gets those on grade level items that are used to determine proficiency and used for accountability. Beyond that, all of the other items will take the student either continue to on grade items depending on what the algorithm is reading, or it will go up or below. So if you have off grade items, those are the items that are being used to develop the RIT score. Those do not enter into the proficiency score. So those kinds of questions, if you need some specific understanding around those are the ones that I send off to the psychometricians at NWEA. Until I can have a more accurate answer for you, that's who I bring into the answers. Yeah.
Trudy, that would be very helpful. That was my question or my comment on there, my question. We really look forward to having accurate data from them, you know, what the kids know and are able to do. So if a student is developing and they get above grade level questions versus below grade level questions, you know, we are curious as to why, because the below grade level questions would have given us more usable data for making, you know, determining interventions and other kinds of things like that.
And so if those questions, the questions that are below grade level and those questions that are above grade level, those went into calculating the RIT, not the proficiency level, right?
True. Yes,
So,
and we understand that.
Okay.
But we also would love to be able to use those, you know, they say, a RIT is a RIT is a RIT, and they're showing up in our reports.
Yeah.
And so we were not sure why the student who was developing and answering questions incorrectly was given so many above grade level.
Above grade level. Okay.
We couldn't necessarily figure out how the RIT would work, but so we're asking how that would work.
That'd be great. So if you could send me that student's number, student number, and the content area and grade level.
Okay.
I can forward that on to NWEA and they can do a deeper dive and provide me with some answers.
Thank you so much. Really appreciate it.
You bet.
Trudy, hey, can I ask a similar question? I'm going through like middle school student reports on NSCAS, kind of like what Sherry is talking about. I'm seeing a lot of kids with the standard and item aligned to like LA.1 point something. And this is like a sixth grader. It's odd to me that first grade items are getting, like this kid's in the 87th percentile, 2 points from advanced, and he had a first grade item and then a 10th grade item, a 5th grade item, and a whole bunch of 7th grade because he's a 7th grader, which makes sense. But is the first grade item really not a first grade item and it's like a gateway item or some other notation maybe? I just randomly pick kids and it's almost all kids or a lot of kids.
Yeah, the way that they're listed on the report is not the way that they're given in the assessment. So that first grade item could have been given anywhere in the assessment. And it could have been a very difficult first grade item and a very easy.
This is a 7th grader.
Okay.
And the other thing I just can't get around my head is if there's 40 questions, and let's say there's 30 just for easy math, 30 blueprint items in the spring, that only allows for 10 items. And in my head, if you're a 7th grader, wouldn't you go down to 6th grade and then 5th and then 4th and then 3rd and then 2nd and then 1st? It just seems odd to me that a 7th grader can adapt down to 1st grade in 10 items in the spring. If that makes sense.
Mhm.
And Darren, I'm going to add, we have multiple schools that are seeing the exact same thing. They have 7th and 8th graders that are advanced or high on track, and they have 10 first grade questions.
My hunch is this is some type of notation thing where these really aren't first grade items. And they're like, I don't know, entry point items where we're just, it's like a half grade level below the rostered grade, but it's super confusing.
Yeah. Okay. That's good to know too.
I can send you some numbers if you want.
Yeah, that'd be great.
Okay.
I'd
Yep.
appreciate that. Thank you.
Yep.
And same, anybody else, that would be really helpful. Did we ever find out what the bottom RIT and ceiling RIT is for NSCAS growth?
Yeah, I just
Same
keep
as
getting
the
the question
full-
from staff. Number one, the same thing Darren's seen, because teachers are looking at that specific report. And so, obviously they're seeing what their kids got correct or not. And we understand we've had to explain how a kid might, have a RIT score or a percentile above the 50th percentile, but still be developing on the scale score side. What the one question that I can't answer clearly in terms of trust data for staff is because the spring test, whether you gave MAP growth or NSCAS growth, the spring test is different than the fall in terms of how wide it adapts. So does it still, even though the test might not adapt, I don't know the numbers behind the scene, could it still provide a final RIT score that might have been as low as what you would have gotten on the fully adaptive scale, I guess is what I'm getting, because students who took MAP growth in the fall, maybe a really struggling student, lower student who had a growth goal, let's even say, 15 points. And they're trying to determine is if the NSCAS test only goes down so far, is that student possibly going to meet his goal falsely? Like let's say the RIT score on NSCAS only goes, the lowest score you could get was 172, and that's just or 168. But the student's growth goal from the fall, when it was all the way adaptive, he should have been at 154. Because NSCAS only goes down to 168, which I'm sure that's not the number, but when it fills in the data, it says he's going to meet his score. That's the one question people have, specifically in our district, because that's the one that's going to make them, trust it. And I guess that would be the same for high achieving students. If they had an original growth goal at a high percentile or high RIT score in the fall, and you're not able to get that in the spring test, then are they falsely missing their growth goal? I don't know. That's still the hang up we have, but
yeah. Okay. I'll thank you for that. And I'll bring that back and try to get an answer. And I did see your comment, Bethany, about suppressing the information. Actually, they did ask about that, and that was my decision because I thought it would be helpful to have that information. I understand that it can be confusing. I was hoping that just the understanding that standard setting is taking place this summer, and so it could be adjusted, but I would hope that it's not going to be such that somebody who is developing is now going to be advanced. I just was hoping that there would be some value in obtaining the proficiency levels and not being suppressed.
I think you're right that probably students aren't going to go from developed to advanced. That would be a big surprise. But with changing the cut scores, there might be quite a few who go from developed to on track. And what we do for students who are developing versus on track is kind of big. I mean, because that's like, are you on grade level or not? And just with the number of teachers who can access the system, we have shared the information that the standard setting is going to change, but it doesn't get to everybody. And so we're getting a lot of questions around that. So we sent out some language in the district that this morning that just said, don't use these right now. You can use the RIT scores. We recommend you get the RIT scores from the MAP reports and not the NSCAS reports so that you won't be looking at potentially wrong, confusing information. So that's just what we did.
Okay. Okie doke. Can we look at state percentiles for NSCAS?
Yeah, there's no way of looking at finding state percentile. So like 1284, what percentile within Nebraska does that correspond to would be helpful. We're still learning the new scale for the state test. It's nowhere there. And I don't think it's in the data file. I think we have to compare it to a spreadsheet we get from you guys. It would be nice to have it embedded.
Oh,
and I
on
think,
the report, you mean?
Yeah, and actually in the data file, I don't think when we download it, I don't think it's there either. It would be super helpful because, and I know NWA's response last year on this was, it's too confusing to parents, but I'm not saying, I mean, I still think it needs to be like a 1280. I don't know what that means. I don't think parents would either.
Okay.
And then you could see by the achievement level, but still those gaps sometimes are wide. So
yeah, okay.
Maybe looking forward.
The RIT scores and the percentiles, the national percentiles aren't on the NSCAS reports. So yeah, there's not much of a point of reference. It's true though that they're going to probably change all the scales this summer when they redo standard setting, correct?
That I can't guarantee, but I'm sure that that will definitely be part of the process. Yeah. Okay, any final questions? We'll collect anything that's in the chat and make sure that we respond and move that off to NWEA if necessary. Okay. Yes, Violet.
Hi, sorry, I know we're about to log off and then here I am raising my hand.
That's okay.
On a Friday, nobody loves that. But I know I talked with you about this and I have a concern about the calculator, not having calculators embedded on the science test. We're playing in our district dance of the floating calculators right now for our 5th graders. So I've got our elementary principals figuring out how many calculators they have in the district and it's a hot mess.
Yeah. So
I don't want the science test to be a struggle for a child because it's a math problem, if that makes sense. So if we could highly, highly recommend that they consider that next year.
Yeah.
To like the math test, a calculator pops up when they get to a problem where they need to calculate something. I would appreciate that.
Sure. Okay.
How did we handle the
really
issue of iPads not being able to type in numbers last year? Were those items disregarded? Do you remember that?
Yeah, they were suppressed.
Is it possible to do that with this situation or would this be too many items?
I'm not sure, but I think it was a different issue.
Was it? Okay. Yeah, these are 2 different issues. I thought maybe this could be similar.
Yeah.
I hate to have kids retest, but I also think like last year, this messes with kids' heads. I had to tell a 4th grade girl to miss a question on purpose because she couldn't answer the right question.
Mm.
And there might be some legality issues with not giving kids the accommodations that they're supposed to get.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know.
We actually had schools that asked too, like, these were students who had accommodations and a calculator in their IEP for science.
Mm-hmm.
And so I told them they could use a handheld calculator, but also there's nowhere to mark it. So that was confusing for schools because you can't either mark math supports or calculator for the science test.
Mm-hmm.
So if you are going to solve the problem by allowing people to use a handheld calculator, it'd be great if they could enable math supports for them to, mark it. Because it's hard to explain to people why you have to mark it on math and not science.
That's not an accommodation for science?
It's not listed as one of the ones you can select. It's grayed out for that one.
Okay.
And if you try to
Doesn't make
submit
any
it,
sense.
if you try to submit it in the registration file, it blows up the whole file. And so I had to go through on that. And
Okay.
So Bethany, I was wondering about that too. And the only thing in my mind, I'm thinking maybe it's because it's a universal accommodation. And so maybe that's why it's grayed out, but I agree.
Mm. Okay. Yeah, I see Allie's head nodding. So she agrees it's a universal. Okay.
is a universal designated feature or a universal support? Because the designated features, some of them we have to mark.
Yeah.
And it would only be for students with that as a need or whatever.
Okay.
Calculator is not a universal for science, is it? That's when we're doing the designated features or accommodations.
Yeah. I don't know. We'll find out. We'll have a conversation. We'll get this figured out. Okay.
And I still think there's confusion around the one you talked about last week with text to speech.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Because I just heard a statement in another meeting from a different district that, something to the effect of, I'm so glad the state made that available for everybody. And so I know districts are doing it differently.
Mm-hmm.
And so, if we're gonna implement something because there's a need for it, maybe it should be those are the situations you could call and get approved by NDE to assign it versus it's so confusing out there the way it is, You've explained it 100 times, I get it, but when teachers get that accommodations guide and special ed teachers and people writing IEPs and I don't know, not everybody has the same understanding.
Yeah.
Or do we revisit the topic of do all kids get it? And that's on demand, where they have to initiate it rather than it just auto reading. And that would, but I assume, Judy, you'll probably look at numbers. I'm looking at what buildings are selecting it for non-IEP kids.
Yeah.
I don't want it to be
right.
It's rare. I heard, it should be rare.
Mm-hmm.
But one solution would be just to make it available for everybody. We discussed this, I feel like 3 years ago.
Yeah, you did. Because I remember this conversation.
Yeah.
Because you do have to click on the ear,
Yeah. So then it wouldn't be a burdensome to me if I don't want it.
Mm-hmm.
And maybe you could do the same thing with the calculator on the science, just make it one of the tools that's available on any item that has any calculation, or maybe any of the items. Because I think for some students, it's not, they just like to have it available. It reduces anxiety knowing that if they need a calculator, it will always be there. And to the extent that we can reduce anxiety, that reduces cognitive load, and kids are just better able to demonstrate what they know and able to do. And there's no real advantage for a kid who doesn't need it for it to be there. It doesn't mess with what we're measuring in any way. On science, probably, right? Unless I wouldn't think.
Yeah. There are other considerations, unintended consequences sometimes to having things available for some students or for all students, and then some students maybe it impacts them differently. But Sharon did include a statement. It would be a universal, so remove the wording in the manual about science. So But anyway, yes, we will certainly have continuing conversations about accommodations, especially and things that are available. And thank you, Violet, for bringing this up. I'm sorry, I do have another meeting in like 4 minutes, so I will need to send you off. So thank you again very much for your time today. As always, your questions, please bring them, send them email, give us a call. We'll try to help you as quickly as we can. Yeah. Thank you. Have a great weekend, everybody.